Everybody, thank you so much for joining our webinar. You know, as Jews, every single day we get up and we make blessings. We thank God for the simple things in life that we take for granted. So, for example, and this is before we pray, for example, we thank God for sight. We thank God for being able to move. One of the blessings we make every single morning is we thank God for our shoes. Okay? And commentary and discussing it says, why do we thank God for shoes? And one of the explanations is because it's the direction of our shoes today that determine the rest of our life. And if we've been walking in the wrong direction, all we have to do is change the direction of our shoes. Now, why I say that is because it's the small things in life that have absolutely great impact. And we need to learn that. And there's nobody better to share this with us than Professor David Zeidel. He's a professor. He lectures at many business schools. He holds an MBA. He's the author of 2 best-selling books that literally uplift and change people's lives. And last week when he spoke for us, we got such great response and feedback. So David's back. And David, we look forward to hearing about small things that have great impact. So without keeping you, it's over to you. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So thanks for welcoming me as a professor. The only thing that's similar to me and a professor is I forget things like a professor. So one day maybe I'll be a professor, but not yet. But really, the small things. And if you have a look at this picture, I thought I'd use this picture as an introduction, because here you've got 4 people in a boat, 2 on the one side, 2 on the other. The 2 are working like crazy, trying to get the water out to stop the boat from sinking. And the other 2 are going and sitting back and saying, thank God it's not on our side. And the thing is that we need to all pull together. We need to realize that when people do things, we're doing it for each other. So you need to walk in the right direction, but you also need to do it together. So I'm going to show you a series of slides and little stories around them that hopefully will give you the insight into the little or the big little things. So here's a picture of myself and Stephen Covey. If you don't know who Stephen Covey is, he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a very, very good book to read. His book has sold over 15 million copies worldwide. I'm holding his book, he's holding my book, and I'm holding him as well. And the question is, why would I put this up? Well, he's got 7 habits, but he talks about a number of things that I want to share with you. And the one thing he says, this is how we learn. If you pick up a book and you read it, just reading the book, even if you understand everything that you've read, you've only got 10% of the knowledge. It's not reading it that gives you the knowledge. It's using the information. So we talk about data and information. And data is just all that data. It's true knowledge when you use it. And how do you use it? You hear other people, how they've used it. You watch them, you see how they do it. You discuss it, and then you experience it. You know, I'm often talking to people, and I hear some people tell me they don't know how to swim. And to illustrate this, if I gave you a book, How to Swim, and you understood everything that you've read about swimming, I'm sure you still won't have the confidence just to dive into the swimming pool in the deep end, because you need that experience. And experience is something we've got immediately after we needed it. So the way you get experience is by doing it. And anything that you learn, anything that you study, you've got to apply it. And it's by applying it, that's how the learning takes place. So when I met Stephen Covey, I gave him my book, he gave me his book, and he wrote this to me. And he wrote this, and it says, David, thanks for your book. And I couldn't read the rest. And I kind of left it. I forgot about it. And then one day, my mom-in-law lives in Cape Town, came to visit, and she was going through the bookcase, and she picked up the book, and she saw this, and she said, David, what does this mean? I said, I don't know. She wouldn't accept that answer. She wrote to Stephen Covey's office and said, this is in my son-in-law's book. What did you write here? And behold, we got an answer back. And this was the answer. David, thanks for your book. You're a trim tab. So my mom-in-law said to me, No. So what is a trim tab? And I had no idea. So you know what she did? She wrote back to his officers. And we got this answer. A trim tab, it's the small rudder that moves the big rudder, that moves the entire ship. And I think they were trying to sell the next book of his, The 8 Habits. They were talking about this on page 32 of his new book. But listen to this. It's the small rudder that moves the big rudder, that moves the entire ship. So how does this work? So there's actually so much water pressure that if you move the wheel, it wouldn't turn anything. But by moving it, you move the small rudder, and then the small rudder moves the big rudder. And then the big rudder moves the whole ship around. And for me, this is an unbelievable analogy of how it's the small things eventually have the great impact. And we often want to have a great impact or do great things. But doing great things is just doing a whole lot of little things as we're going along. So we often talk, are you a small cog in the wheel? And we often think we can't have a massive impact. But it's the combination of all these little things that has the big impact in the end. And sometimes we try to do things and it doesn't go right. So this next quote I think is great, and it's one of my favorite quotes. It says, you don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by not swimming once you've fallen in the water. We are all going to fall in the water at some stage. It's not the falling that determines how we end up. It's the swimming. So you've got to tell yourself that even if you're doing little things, it can have a big impact. You've got to remind yourself that even if you fall in the water, even if you do things and it's not working, it's okay. Just carry on swimming and then you'll learn. And in terms of business, we look at this, and a businessman will buy a watermelon and sell a watermelon. So he might buy it for €1 and sell it for €1.50. And it's kind of, why would he sell it? How can he sell it for €1.50 when he bought it for €1? And the answer is he's adding value. You've got to add some value. And in terms of this, maybe the value is that he's bringing a whole lot of watermelons to one place. So somebody who wants a watermelon doesn't have to travel somewhere to go and buy their watermelon. Maybe he's slicing it so that somebody can then only buy what they need. They don't have to buy the whole watermelon. And the question is, if this is what a businessman does, what does an entrepreneur do? How can an entrepreneur do this differently? How can he take the watermelon and change its form to something completely different? Because in business, we buy something and we sell something similar, but when we're trying to innovate, we're trying to change it. And what you're really doing is you're taking the watermelon and maybe you're making watermelon juice. And instead of selling it for €1, you're now selling it for €5. And you're changing the form. And if you look at this picture of this watermelon, it looks watermelon juice. It looks fantastic. It's in a nice glass. It's got a nice little umbrella on it. And the question is, does that umbrella change the taste of the watermelon? And most people would say, of course not. How can putting an umbrella in change the taste of the watermelon? But the truth is that it does. Because when you're drinking watermelon, if you order watermelon and it comes in a dirty little cup and it's all crinkled and it's squashed, when you taste it, you're getting that impression. If somebody gives you something and serves you and makes you feel like a king when you're getting it, that makes you feel better. And in fact, when you feel better, it actually tastes better. So this little umbrella is that. And there's a saying that goes that people might forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And everything around giving a service is not just giving what the person's asked for. It's giving it with a service. So I'd like you to look at what you're doing and ask yourself, what is your umbrella? What is that that thing that you're adding that is making somebody feel better about themselves when they do business with you. And I often in lectures, I'm talking to people and they're in companies and they internal staff. They don't deal with external staff. And they say, but this is great if you're selling to external people. I only deal with people within my company. The truth is, anybody you deal with, whether it's internal or external, is your customer. And if you can make them feel better, then that's the way you need to treat it, and ask yourself, everything that you do, every service that you give, what is your umbrella? What is that extra thing that you can add? And a company that does that, I think, exceptionally well is Starbucks. So here is the sign of Starbucks. And I was lucky enough to go to Seattle. What I've done is I've taken a whole lot of students overseas and we visit different companies. And the companies give us insight into the business. And this is the original Starbucks that's in Seattle. And if I ask you the question, what business is Starbucks in? And I'm sure when you're thinking of this, you're thinking, is this a catch question? This is a silly question. Of course, they're in the business of coffee. It says there, Starbucks coffee. What a ridiculous question is that? But Howard Schultz, who started the business, says this about his business. He says, we're not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. And it sounds like so one or the other. But here the focus is, and you need to look and say, where's the focus of this? Is the focus on the coffee or the focus on the people? And when he says we're in the people business serving coffee, he's understanding that umbrella aspect. And when you know what you're serving and who you're serving, you will do it differently. If you think your business is coffee, your focus is on the coffee. If you think your business is people, then your business is the people. And when I was there, somebody told me this story, which I find astounding. So when you go and you order coffee at a Starbucks, the big thing is they write your name on the cup. And then when you go, you wait, and then they serve you, and then all of a sudden you hear them call out your name. It's like, David, your coffee's ready. And you go up and you feel better when you use somebody's name. Their name is them. And so it does make a difference. And they told me the story that in one of their coffee shops, somebody came in and I don't know what the name was, but let's call it Jim. And they wrote the name Jim, and the lady serving him saw that Jim really didn't look happy. He looked sad. And because she's in the people business, she wrote a little saying there, like, look up, the sun is shining. And Jim went and got his coffee. And the next day, Jim came back and she saw him again and he still looked sad. And then she thought of another saying and wrote it. So Jim came every day, and people, they started thinking, what can we say? And they actually went and Googled different sayings, and they waited for Jim to come in, and they wrote it. And it happened, and it went on for 6 weeks. Every day Jim would come in, didn't look that happy, but they wrote the same. And then one day Jim didn't come back. And the next day he didn't come back. And eventually they kind of thought, wonder what's happened to Jim. And amongst themselves, they said they know where he went, and they kind of followed and they asked questions. And eventually they came on a door and they knocked on the door. And a young girl opened and they said, sorry, we're looking for Jim. And the woman said, I'm Jim's daughter. And they said, we're from Starbucks down the road. And she said, please come inside. And she told them that Jim was dying of cancer. And he would go in, and that's why he looked so sad. And she said, please come into the lounge. And they walked into the lounge, and there was a bookcase. But there were no books on the bookcase. There were coffee cups. There were cups with all the sayings that they'd written all along this. I'm getting emotional just telling the story. I didn't even know who Jim was. But that is touching people's lives. When somebody on their last few days on earth is collecting what you're telling them, then you've made an impact. And we should all strive in some way to have that kind of impact. And then you know that you're in the people business, serving coffee, not the other way around. And on that same trip in Seattle, some of you might have heard the story about the flying fish. And there's a marketplace. And in this marketplace, there's many people who sell fish, but there's one group that throw the fish around. And they're almost like a show where they're throwing this fish around. And in fact, I recorded something. Let me play it for you, and then I'll tell you the rest of the story. So this is at the market. People are hanging around, and this is what happens.
Guys, we back for airline travel and we ship anywhere in the U.S. You live in Ohio, you can eat fresh seafood.
So Ryan, what makes this, what business lesson can you tell us? What makes a good job or good role? What makes it enjoyable?
Why we are world famous is not because we throw fish, it's because we hang out with people. We try to make people's days. In turn, we sell lots of fish. So it's really about like who we're being and like be interested, not interesting. It's kind of like the idea. And then teamwork. There's a big amount of like respond and acknowledge. Everybody yells it out. It's how we flow. It's how we work. It's how, you know, like you got to know it's being thrown at you, right? You can't just randomly throw stuff at people without them like knowing what it is. So yeah, just our communication. And then just like we come in and we have a morning huddle at the beginning of every morning and every night, just to kind of like get here in the morning. If you got something on your chest, you gotta get up. So then you can be here, and be present, right? Because otherwise people always have these conversations going in their head. And if you can acknowledge that conversation and be like, cool, I'm not gonna let you run me today. I'm not gonna be in a bad mood because of that. Yes, I'm never in a bad mood. But yeah, some people need that in the morning. I think it's good. And then at the end of the night, we have evening huddle, and that is how we do. Do we make our goal today? Like we set a goal and an intention for the morning, and then at the end of the day, we check in and see if we were full of it, or if we were doing it, or what we do. So yeah, it's, I've been here like 3 years, and some of these guys have been here 20 to 30 years.
Wow.
You know? So it's like it's really like a lot of history too. Like, these guys know everybody down here. It's like it's nuts. Like I know quite a few people worked here 3 years, but the whole market's like a small family in its own way, which is
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah. Have fun, eat lots, drink lots. There's a lot of fun to be having.
Right.
You know?
Awesome. Thank you.
So isn't that amazing? So there you've got a guy, and I'm going to pull up some of the stuff that he said. But there you've got a guy who's just selling fish. That's all he does. But listen to the insight. Listen to how he understands people. If you missed it, this is what he said. We try to make people's day. In turn, we sell lots of fish. He's not trying to sell you fish. He's trying to make your day. Be interested, not interesting. The focus needs to be on the person that you're serving. Teamwork. They throw the fish around. You're going to get hit by a flying fish if you don't respond, acknowledge. And then they even have a group huddle every morning, every night. In the morning, they set the goal for the day. At night, they assess as if they've achieved their goal. Be here, be present. The way to live, you can't live in the past, you can't live in the future. You can live in today. And that's what he's teaching you. And this is not a CEO of some company. This is a fishmonger. But the insight is unbelievable. And you know, there's that saying, who is wise? He who learns from everybody. And so we can learn from everybody. And I'm sure you've heard the story of the lobster. Rabbi Tversky tells the story of a lobster. And the story of the lobster is that the lobster grows and grows and grows, but the shell doesn't. And eventually it gets sore and it's painful. And the only way it can get rid of the pain is it gets rid of its shell and then grows another shell. But it expands and it grows. And the only way it grows is, or knows that it's growing, is through the pain. And so the stimulus for the lobster to grow is that it feels uncomfortable. And in times of stress, like we're going through now, we're uncomfortable, but this is the exact time and the opportunity to grow. And if you use adversity properly, you grow through adversity. You only grow through the pain. So what we're looking at is you can sit in the little red circle, which is your comfort zone. If you want to grow, you've got to move further out. You've got to go what we call the fear zone. And sometimes we don't want to go there because we say we don't have confidence. We will find excuses. We'll listen to what other people are telling us, and then we don't grow. But if you go through the fear zone, you can then get to the learning zone. And that's where you acquire new challenges and you learn to deal with new problems. And it's when you go through the learning zone, then you get to the growth. And that's where you find your purpose. And then when you conquer and you find new things to do. But you have to leave the comfort zone. And you have to go through that sense of fear. And then you learn, and only then you grow. And a lot of people say you need to find your passion and follow what your passion is. And people are saying, but I don't have this passion and I need this feeling of passion. What is passion? The definition of passion is it's an intense feeling of enthusiasm towards a desire or something or someone. But you know that passion actually comes from the word suffering. So you can have this intense feeling, but you also suffer. It's not that everything is great if you find your passion. It's hard work. Even if you are doing your passion, it's still hard work. And the moment you accept it, then you can grow and grow through it. It's when you're always trying to find the easy way out that you don't grow. And sometimes the things that we think are the hardest things in life are the things that enable us to grow the most. And I'll give you an example. Hopefully you all know who Kevin Anderson is. I almost said Kevin Curran, who was another tennis player, but Kevin Anderson. Do you remember a few years ago, he was playing in Wimbledon. It was the semi-final of Wimbledon. And the match went on. I think it was the second longest tennis match in Wimbledon history. In fact, I'm going to show you a little clip from there. So let me call this up. Here we go. So if you know anything about tennis, you know that the match goes up to, a set goes up to 6. These were 2 sets all, and this was running at 24-24. It was back and forth. I can't remember the number of hours. In fact, I do remember because it's up there in the top left-hand corner. 6.5 hours of tennis they were playing. No one could really have the breakthrough. And then this happened. And I want you to watch, and I'll tell you what in case you miss it, what happens?
Lefty.
Left
That's
hand.
in.
It's in.
I'll show it to you. We'll continue and you can see the rest of it. But what happened is Kevin Anderson fell over and dropped his racket. He plays right-handed. He picked up the racket in his left hand and he hit a shot. It wasn't a winning shot. It was just a shot, gave him enough time to put it back into his hand, and then he could carry on playing. And he won the match. He won that set and he won that game, won that set and won the match and got through to the final. Watch this again.
Come on. Guess what the score is on the Isla serve? Look at that, left-handed. You should get a bonus for that. That should go to love 40. Just skip one.
Okay, even the commentators are saying that should go to love 40. You should just skip it. He got up and he hit the ball with his left hand. And you can say, wow, that was lucky. But let me give you a backstory to that. Kevin Anderson was 8 years old. He was playing tennis. His father was coaching him. He broke his right hand. And he said, Dad, I can't play anymore. And his dad said, I don't care if you have to play with your left hand, you will play. And he played while his hand was broken using the other hand. Did his father know that 20 years later, he will need one shot to keep him in the game? It didn't have to be a brilliant shot, just kept him in the game and he won the match. Did he know that? Absolutely not. But it was the time of challenge that later on brought him that success. And they say that what seems impossible today will one day become your warm-up. In other words, as you grow, you will grow and you grow. And what seems hard today will be very easy for you tomorrow. You will have other challenges. So it's about not giving up. And a nice quote is from Muhammad Ali, who says, a man who views the world the same at 50 as he did when he was 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. And it's about changing, and we all try to hold on to what we are. We try not to change. You know, they say the only thing that likes change is a baby with a wet nappy. And we try hold on to that change or not change. But it's about changing. The world is changing, and we have to change with the world. And how is the world changing? It's changing like this. In the early days, a mother used to bake the cake, and she used to buy all the ingredients, and she used to make it from scratch. And then we moved on, where there was a little bit of a premix, and so you still made it, but you had most of the premix. And then the next bit of the economy was we moved into the service economy, where we now, what we did is you just ordered in the cake. And now we're moving into the experience economy. And the experience economy is where you hand everything over and somebody else does the whole affair for you. And the difference is we're going from high customer effort to very low customer effort, but very high customer value and price. And it's going back to those things. And I want to ask you to ask yourself, what value are you giving to your customer? How is your value that you're giving different from anybody else giving the value? And if it's not, how could you give that value? Why, if somebody could deal with you or a whole lot of other people, why would they choose you? What is it about you that makes it better? Just remember, people will deal with somebody who makes them feel better. They'll forget maybe what you said, but they won't forget that feeling. So what I want to do with this is, if you have, open it up to questions. If you want to add to this, I'm open to any questions. In fact, before we go to the questions, I'm going to try something very different. A little bit of a challenge, but let's try this. I want you to look at your screen, and there's a picture of a lady with 3 dots. It's a negative picture. I want you to focus on this picture for 30 seconds. Try and blink as little as possible. So look at it, and I'll tell you, so you can start looking now, and I will tell you when to look away. So look, focus on those dots. Try and not blink, you can, but try not to. So try to keep your eyes open. Okay. Now I want you to quickly look away, look up at your ceiling and blink as fast as possible when you're looking at the ceiling. And hopefully you're astounded that this lady is on your ceiling, and it's not a black and white picture, it's a color picture. And that shows you that our mind is so powerful that it can take an image which is separated, it's black and white, and we can add color, and our brains add the color, it takes it away from where it is and it puts it on your ceiling. That's astounding. And that shows you how powerful the brain is, how powerful we are, and how we take things and we put it together. So use that to your benefit. Use it to the benefit of others. How can you use this power for the benefit of you and for the benefit of society together? Because remember that in a society, we're all in the same boat. And it's not about somebody else's suffering, that it's just their suffering. Their suffering is all of our suffering. Because if we float together. If we sink together. And we are all as one. So now I'm open to any questions that you may have.
David?
Yes.
If are you a fan of making a list, dealing with it? Sometimes people just get so overwhelmed they don't know where to start. What's your advice? People don't even know where to start.
Yeah. So
what do they do?
So again, and it's something I spoke about previously, is maybe I should stop sharing and then we can chat. So it's important that you understand what your why is. You need to understand what the bigger picture is. You need to keep asking yourself, what is motivating you and where you're heading? Because if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there. And if you don't know where you're going, start going somewhere. And as you go, it will reveal itself. But yes, if you think you know where you're going, it's important to do a to-do list, because we get distracted. And it's only if you carry on being focused on what you want, then you can do it.
It sounds a simple question, but can I work on? I woke up today, there are 15 different things that I need to work on. Can I work on all 15 at once, or do I need to pick one thing?
So you need to have 3 key things. They say the number shouldn't be more than 3. That those are your 3 big things, and those are the things you need to focus on and at least do those 3 things every day. And ideally, the world doesn't work like that really, but ideally, those things should be the things that you do first. There's a guy who wrote a book, I'm trying to think of his name, but he wrote the book that said, eat that frog. And eat the frog means do those tasks that you really don't want to do it first, and then then you got that out the way and you can do with the rest. But if you've got, let's say, 3 main goals, we can get caught up in a whole lot of different things. But if we've got those 3 main goals, make sure that you do a little bit on those goals every single day. Then you're not missing out on it. And for people who are looking at their finances and looking at saving for the future, when you earn your salary, the time to save is at the beginning of the month. You need to take some of that money and put it away, that it's almost like it's not yours to spend. And that's how you accumulate wealth over time. It's the people who just carry on spending and spending that run out of money at the end. So it's about taking whatever you've got and deciding, if your goal is to save money, then take it in the beginning of the month.
So you've got to put that discipline in. But do you think, let's just focus on character. Let's say that, can a person fix up a character flaw? Can a person fix up anger? Can a person, can you fix up these character flaws?
So in order to fix up any flaw that you have, you need to recognize it first of all, and you need to want to change it. So in terms of anger, there are actually 3 kind of levels of anger. The first bit of anger is that you get angry, that you can't do anything about. Somebody does something, you will get angry. But the second part of anger is, what do you do with this anger? How do you respond to the anger? And that can be learned. So if somebody does something that angers you, yes, you will get angry. But now, how do you handle that anger? And you can learn techniques of slowing down, of not being impulsive, of handling it. That's the second bit of anger. The third bit of anger is about resentment. Do you hold on to that forever and a day afterwards? And the easiest bit to learn is that third one, is learning to let it go. And eventually you learn to let it go. And again, it's a process. If you're not the person who can let it go, it's a process. But like anything else, it's about learning from somebody who has the ability to teach you how to do it. It's about doing it. You can read books about it, but you got to now starting to practice those things. So the 3 bits of anger, the easiest is the end one. The second is the second one. And the first one, it's very hard not to get angry, but it's not the anger that's bad. It's what we do and how we portray with that anger.
Wow. Well, I see just time is shooting by. I want to ask you, if you had to give advice of the 3 best, after yours, by the way, yours are the first 2 books to read, the 3 most important books for people to read.
That's a good one. So I would definitely say Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. It just gives you insight. And there's somebody who took a horrific situation and he interpreted it differently. And he got meaning from something that is almost meaningless. So for anyone who's not aware of what the book's about, it's somebody, Viktor Frankl, who grew up in the concentration camp. And he found meaning within unbearable suffering. So if you can't find meaning in anything you're doing, think of this guy. And it's so that would be definitely the book number 1, without a doubt. Other books would be maybe one I read recently, which is The Choice. Again, also related, also somebody who took unbelievable situation and in fact became friendly with Viktor Frankl and went through the same experience. Another book, let me come back to you on another book. It's I think those 2 are the ones that stand out the most for me.
Beautiful. Some listen. Jewish law is so, or you're so in line with the Jewish philosophy. The truth of the matter in Jewish thinking is you can fix up anything, even to the degree that you can change your mind, that you don't even get angry, because if everything comes from God, well, then ultimately it's good for you. But your thinking is so in line, because the truth of the matter is a person is born and we're here to transform our lives and become the people that we could become. And life is not a rehearsal. The quicker we get to it, the quicker we start dealing with it, the quicker we start realizing that small things have a great impact and we can change our lives completely, the more successful we become. So I want one closing remark from you, and then we're all going to start. We're going to wake up tomorrow different.
So I want to pick up, and my closing remark will be on what you said. It's the small things. We always look at problems. We always look at things and we think, I've got to do something huge. And big things are just made up of little things. Anything is made up, if you look at any huge, massive thing, it's made up of little atoms. It's by changing one or two of those little atoms that it starts having the snowball effect. So the message I can leave you with is, don't try change something big. That you can aim for that, but start little. And it's when we gain, we get that snowball effect. And when you're doing something and it's working, then it builds on itself. And if it's not working, then we know how to fix it. And if it's a little thing, we can fix it in a little way. And it really is. And if you change your mindset, that it is the little things that eventually have the massive impact, because a whole lot of little things are much bigger than often one big thing.
David, where does one buy your books?
So the book on basic business calculations, which is a business book, is available in exclusive books. The other one, Life on the Run, is available through me, but I am going to be creating an online version of it. And once I've done that, I'll let you know, and maybe we can...
We'll advertise it for you.
Pardon?
We will advertise it for you, because you have a very easygoing style in writing, and very uplifting. So I want to thank you for this evening on behalf of all of us. And really, please God, we should just do the small things and transform our lives. And thank you, David, for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.